welcome to the Board Game Design Variety Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Dunstan. I hope you're all well on this fine Monday afternoon, morning, day, night, wherever you are in the world. Hi, Philios, how are you going? I think I haven't seen you here before at the stream. Welcome. I'm a board game designer and developer, I guess you could call. An independent board game designer, that is. I don't work with a publisher. And yeah, on stream, I chat about board games and board game design in particular. Yeah, today is going to be a little bit. I realize I've been maybe doing like I've been doing looking back at various things on the years recently. Hey Jay, how you going? Welcome. And I thought it might be time to get back to a bit of design, maybe, or chatting about things that might be useful for the viewers. Hey Alex, how you going? Welcome. So Alex, actually, it's good that you're early because I thought. I have put that we could do game jams today. So I know you have one in the bag already. So if you want to think about a topic or a theme, if you know, and we can, that's the topic of the stream. So I can, you know, I'll probably do a few, like I've got a few links and news and things as always at the start, but then we can get into thinking about new ideas and games. So if you'd like, yeah, so for those who don't know, as part of the channel points, which is the thing down in the bottom right-hand corner as you're looking, you sort of gain these channel points, and I sort of put a fun thing there where you could like redeem channel points for a game jam. Hey Robin, how are you going? Welcome. So with the idea where I would try and not completely design a game on stream, sort of live, but maybe think through my thought process for how I would go about trying to start a new design, maybe. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. Hey Robert, how are you going? Afternoon. Welcome all to the stream. Thanks for joining. Yeah, so how is everyone going? How was your weekend? Weekend was fine for myself. Played some games, which is always a bit of fun. What were we playing? A bit of Bora Bora, an older Stefan Feld game, which is a lot of fun. Hey Richmond, how you going? Welcome. Played some of The Mind with Richmond and Ross from More Games Please. And Zate, who we might see later in the crew. Yes, exactly, the crew. We did pretty well, actually. We I think, what did we get up to? We completed mission 10, I think, and maybe we had about 14 or 15 attempts. So yeah, it's the first time I tried the crew on Board Game Arena, and level 10 or 14 attempts. There you go. I remembered it pretty well. Yeah, it's first time looking at. So yeah, firstly, if nobody's tried it on Board Game Arena, it's a very good implementation there. Yeah, no complaints, actually. Very clear, very clean, and yeah, a lot of fun, actually. So I'm hoping that might be able to get back to it with some try and do some of the higher levels. Hey David, how are you going? Well, oh, and I should say, David, congratulations on the success of the Tinner's Trail Kickstarter. For those who don't know, David was the solo designer and developer of the sort of the remastered Tinner's Trail by Martin Wallace, which is being kickstarted at the moment by Alley Cat Games. Yeah, which I think has just hit its target, I'm pretty sure, on Kickstarter. So it'll be up for the next, I think, 3 weeks or so. So if you're interested in that, sort of a classic Martin Wallace design for it was about 10 years old, I think. Yeah, so definitely I would recommend check that out. Robin was playtesting Saturday. Sunday was a surprise game day, which involved more playtesting. So that's what the best surprise that a game designer can get, right? You know, the best you can hope for is a surprise where you get to do more game testing. It's not about actually getting to play any games. It's just that you get to playtest some more things, which is nice. Yeah. Robert says on the Cosmos website there are several interesting different missions for the crew that are not in the booklet. They're quite samey as you go along. Oh, I see. So like the ones, yeah. I actually haven't gone ever past level 10. So you know, I look forward to seeing, I guess, what how they're different. I mean, I like the different. You know, I think it's mission 6, which is the one where one player has to lose all the tricks. It's sort of a variant of a classic. Well, I know from Euchre and 500, which is this like a hand where you bid misère and you try and lose everything, which was nice that they fitted into that. So yeah, I don't know. Are you saying that actually after that there's not that many different kind of missions and things like that? But I need to look through the book. I don't own it, so it'll be interesting. So yes, David, you can head off now. But you're really, congratulations. I'm really glad to see how it's going, and yeah, that's really encouraging. And Alex says, I was a guest in the Bez and Friends stream talking about my contest winners games. Oh, congratulations. Yeah. Oh, yes, that was on the, was it on the week? Was it all weekend? I think I kind of missed it somehow, sadly. But yes. Anyway. Philios, are you, I don't think are you a real viewer? It's a bit, I think if maybe one of the mods, I think so Philios may be a bot. I don't know why someone's speaking to me in Czech. But anyway, Robert says one of the later missions is a player has to lose all but one trick from you. Oh, I see. So they're kind of incremental. Okay, but you're saying the ones they put on the website are a bit more like a bit more varied, I guess. Well, that's good. I mean, yeah, I mean, in a way, like an increasing difficulty, I like. And oh, I see. So you okay? Not a. Yeah, I'm sorry. I do live in Prague, but my Czech is rather poor, and certainly not up to the standard of hosting a stream or anything. But welcome anyway to the stream. I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, I guess you're a board gamer or a game designer. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so kind of things that I always start off with, you know, some sort of news or, you know, things like that. I guess sort of like links and various things that I've sort of found during the week. The first is that I will try and share my screen. Let's see how it goes. Yes, let's do that. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Sorry, Felix. Yeah, we're talking about board game design. I'm a board game designer, hrdní designer, společenský hry. But yeah, and I design board games for part of my living, and we chat about board game design and all things around that. Okay. I'm a bit confused. Yes, thanks. Good. So the first up is the Zenobia Award, and so I've sort of talked about this on the stream before, but it's a new design, like sort of game submission competition for designers from underrepresented groups, including women, people of color, LGBTQ plus folks. So if anybody you know fits that sort of criteria and has a game, and especially looking at games, historical board games, and I know the deadline submission is Friday. So actually Jeff Engelstein I think tweeted out that they've just had a very generous sort of donation, which means the first prize I think is like $5,000 or something now. So if anybody knows, you know, if someone watching has a game that they'd like to submit, or if you know someone who would benefit from something like this, please encourage them to apply. It's zenobiaaward.org. And yeah, they end this Friday, the entries. The other thing that's coming up is the tabletop mentorship program. I feel like I'm just some sort of like notice board or something. I'm pretty sure it's the 15th. It looks like. Yeah, so they open on January the 15th, which is Thursday. And Jay says you only need a concept for the Zenobia Award. Okay, so yeah, so even if you haven't designed something, or if you have an idea for a game, submit that for the Zenobia Award. So yeah, it looks. I'll just quickly go back there. The how do you apply? Let's see. So there's just a design, like a sort of a Google form, sort of your experience, perspective, history, and then you just have to answer a few questions about your design. So it's, you know, a really like low barrier to sort of apply, hopefully. So yeah, if please spread it on, I guess. And yeah, I think it's a really great what they're doing. And yes, the other thing is the tabletop membership program opens January 15th. I guess I'll probably talk about it on Friday, which maybe it'll be live. And I can actually apply maybe on stream. I don't think there's any information that I might, and you know, I can show you the process of that, so maybe that'll be interesting to folks, or can show it at least how easy it is. And again, that's a really great program. Is anyone thinking of entering like another thing I talked about Friday was the Cardboard Edison Award, which is currently open for entries until the end of the month. Is anybody in stream, in chat, like looking at entering that? Is that something anybody's sort of working towards for this month? And what are you working on then, if you're working on that? That'd be kind of cool to know. A few other sort of things I just sort of saw in my travels, I guess, mainly through Twitter. The Smithsonian now has this huge new open access database of their images, which you're able to access and use, which I think is really great. I'm just going to randomly, I haven't actually looked through it very much, to be honest. Yeah, there's just so many. So from the National Postal Museum, we have a plate proof of stamps, for example. If you want to use as a kind of a cool background for your postal stamp game in the future. It's apparently not loading, but yeah. But anyway, so that's a really great. I mean, I think so if anyone's ever looking for kind of like stock images for a for a prototype or even actually just a bit of inspiration, I think there's like hundreds of thousands of things I think in this database. So definitely would recommend taking a look, and I can put this here in the chat so people can check it out themselves. Yeah, folks. Alex says, I never feel like I have something ready enough. Yeah, I mean, hopefully the deadline for a design competition is maybe the thing that can help you kind of get across the line or get to have something ready. And I think the other point is that just view it as a, you could sort of lower your expectations a little bit. Maybe you really feel like, okay, the game's not quite ready. I'm unlikely to win it. But, I think if it's a solid game and it's playable, I think it's a very good way to get really good feedback, to get a little bit of your game noticed a little bit. And I think it's an honestly, a really, it seems to be a very well run competition. I've never been involved with it personally, but so I would just really recommend, like, just if it's possible, I'd sort of throw down the gauntlet and like just say I'm definitely going to enter, and I think again, like the kind of stuff you need to apply with is maybe not that much. I don't know if you even need rules or things like that. So you may need rules, but I'm pretty sure I think it's a video, right? You need a video sort of describing the game. Yeah. So yeah, I think I would definitely work with it. Alex says, yeah, true. Maybe I'll polish something up a little. Yeah, definitely. Even if it's like an older design, I guess. Just choose the one that you're sort of happiest with. I think, even if maybe it's not the one you're actively developing right now, I think going through that process is really useful. Robin says, one of my published games is based on the criteria and restrictions of a design competition. Yeah. I mean, like any constraints or restrictions and deadlines. It's like a combination of constraints and deadlines. I think are the perfect way to get a design finished. You need constraints. Sometimes the best way to get started with a game. And deadlines are a great way to finish a game design. So, design competitions can give you both, which is really great. David said, I did a few competitions last year, and I think they suit certain designers and certain styles of games. Cardboard Edison was certainly the best I did, but feedback on things I farm out is not that helpful. What do you mean by that, David? Do you mean that the feedback from the Cardboard Edison competition itself wasn't particularly useful? Yeah, I'd be interested in sort of like, I guess, diving into that a little bit more. Like what if there's kind of things for people to look out for in entering these competitions. I mean, you can definitely look back on the previous games that were awarded on the Cardboard Edison website. They have all that information, and that's probably something worthwhile looking at, I would say. And I think you can get a bit of a sense of what games do well in that sort of in those sort of contests. It's true, they do seem to be more kind of like medium weight strategic games. You don't tend to see a lot of party games or very heavy games. They seem to be somewhere in the middle. At least that's what I've kind of noticed myself. So that might be something to keep in mind. But yeah. I'll just also ask you, Chad, I sort of said a bit earlier that today we're going to be talking a bit about, like, we're going to do some game jams probably, or talk about starting designs. I know that Alex has a game jam up his sleeve, or like he's owed a game jam. But I seem to remember there was somebody else who had redeemed one, whom I owed. So if you are that person, please let me know in chat. And but also, if anyone wants to, so it's Alex's choice of game jam. So if you have something you'd want me to jam on, or Alex, if you want, you can say like you're happy for the chat to kind of give general suggestions and things, and we'll sort of open up to chat generally. So people can be thinking in chat maybe what they'd like to see me try and make a game out of, or a theme, or a mechanic, or whatever, stuff from it, or a restriction, or anything like that. Yeah, a few other little links I found. There's a really great tutorial about data merge on InDesign. So I talk about Daniel Solis a little bit on the stream before, and he's done some great tutorials before. This is also a very good tutorial about InDesign data merge. As they say, actually, it's an extension of what they learned from Daniel Solis. Yeah, I definitely recommend if anyone wants to make it. I use it a lot. It's a great way to make a sort of variable power card games. If you've got a lot of cards to make and you want to design, and you've got like different criteria like costs or effects or art, and you want to kind of, you can just have a spreadsheet that lets you kind of spit out all the cards as separate images. Very, very valuable, really useful for digital prototyping as well, for quickly making like decks of cards in Tabletop Simulator. So I'll drop the link in chat if anyone wants to sort of just have a look at. And I thought it was particularly good. And the last thing is there's another set of icons and images in this icon finder, and these are sort of in the Creative Commons, for example. I thought they looked kind of cool, and I hadn't come across this icon finder website before, so folk might find it kind of interesting in terms of finding different things. But maybe I'll put the link specifically to this fantasy and role-playing thing, which folks might find useful for their own designs. Yeah, so that's just various bits and pieces that I found myself. Yeah, and I don't have much news for myself. Not much has happened since Friday, as is probably understandable. But I might have a bit more news on Friday. There's probably a few meetings and things like that. I am personally struggling trying to design in the second part of the latest adventure game that Adventure Game 6 that I'm designing. I'm doing part 2 at the moment, sort of at the kind of creative coalface where I am trying to urge myself to just get through it. It's even when you've designed a lot of games, you still get to those points where it's just you have to kind of push yourself to sort of do something, do anything. Yeah, Icons 8 is really great as well. That's true, Phyllis. Yeah, a really good point, actually. I can bring that up as well. Icons 8. Yeah. Oh, and actually, yeah, it's a great. Yes, remember, because you can download it essentially. So I can show that. Yeah, this is Icons 8. Yeah, which is just, yeah, really, really quite good. I haven't used it too much, but I think I should probably, because actually having it as a program rather than necessarily a website can sometimes also be useful. I'm not sure of the kind of pricing model with it so much, but yeah. Yeah. So yes, I'm just trying to sort of struggle through myself, and a few other projects are sort of starting. So I thought, yeah, it might be a nice sort of stream to chat about, where do you start with new designs? How do you actually, how do you go from idea to even the first prototype? Where do you go from? I think Alex says, yes, we can all suggest something and select what strikes you the most. Yeah, that's okay. So if people want to start putting stuff in the chat about suggestion of what you'd like me to game jam on today, it can be anything, can be a theme, can be a mechanism, can be another constraint, whatever you like. Drop it in the chat, and then I'll make a selection in a few minutes. David said, I get a GD. What is a GD? To do my more finished prototypes and sell sheets. Feedback seemed to be based on presentations, titles, GD style, component choices, etc. Oh, graphic designer. Thanks. Thanks for that. I get a graphic designer to do my more finished prototypes and sell sheets. Okay. So feedback seemed to be based on presentation, title, graphic designer style, component choice, rather than nuts and bolts. Yeah, I guess the thing with these competitions in a way is especially because with Cardboard Edison, they get so many entries. I guess they're one of the larger competitions now. That, yeah, anything you can do to kind of make yourself stand out. It's a bit of a pity, I would say, because I do say a lot on the, like, it's that I don't think that should be the focus, but I guess you just want to get the intent of your game across as clearly as possible. And if graphic design can do that, then that's great. Yeah, but hopefully it would still be useful to a designer. Like even if there is sort of feedback around graphic design and things like that, hopefully there would still be some useful feedback out of that. But it's true, like it sort of is a mixed bag. Sometimes you get useful things, sometimes not. I would still say that actually, even without the feedback side, design competitions is useful because they help you just finish things. And I think early on, that's really some of the hardest things if you're beginning out in design. Trying to find a way how to actually finish a design is one of the really hard things. Hey, Bass, how are you going? We're doing some game jamming today, I think. So actually, I should update this banner. Yeah. So Alex has sort of said wildlife theme, communal bag building. Well, actually, I think outside of anybody else putting anything else in the chat, we can go with that. What I will do is find a way. Yeah, so I know when Michael's done this on stream, he has like a Word document and he puts things up. It might be a bit more of a stream of consciousness for me, but what I will do is I'll have a Word document open, and then maybe that can, at least that can sort of guide some thoughts. And if people drop into the stream later, they'll at least see, what's been happening. So let's do this. Game jam. I'll actually share the screen. Application edits. Okay. So game jam. Wildlife and bag building. Communal bag building. Okay, let's make that a bit bigger so people can see it in the back. Okay. Great. Robin's asking cooperative or competitive. So it is a bag full of genetic mutations and dominant recessive genes. Alex is going to leave it up to me. Thanks, Alex. Yeah, it's interesting because I think this is one of the great things about jams is that the moment you kind of give a theme and a mechanic, immediately you start having thoughts about how much that might be used, and it's interesting. I think my first thing is to go competitive. Actually, the communal bag building part for me kind of speaks very quickly to a genre that I've talked about before. That I'm a little bit obsessed with these kind of like bingo style games at the moment, which I think is really interesting. Basically, so I guess right now my immediate thoughts are quite mechanical, actually, mainly because just saying communal bag building has immediately like sparked like a bunch of things in my head. Yeah, exactly, Augustus, exactly. But there's a lot about like Tiny Towns. Tiny Towns is not exactly the same. It's not quite bingo, but it's these games where somebody does something and everyone else does something at the same time. So like a lot of roll and writes fit the same thing. But yeah, if you sort of, like even if you start with Augustus, but you can actually alter the composition of the bag, that to me is like, that is a very clean idea. And I guess then I think with the start of an idea, one of the things that I really want to try and think about is like, what do you get from making this change? Okay, let's say we're starting with a bag building game. What are the benefits of a bag building game? Well, it's kind of the same deck building kind of thing. Like if we all have a personal bag, it's the same thing. There's sort of positive feedback loops that you get in a deck building game. It's similar for a bag building game. The benefits of a bag building game, in some ways, there's a couple of things. You can have, you can kind of always randomize all the components. There's not always has to be a discard pile in a bag builder. You can kind of throw everything back in. So like in Orleans, there is no discard pile really. So it's a little bit different to a deck builder in that you have this overall, deck composition that you're sampling each turn, but you're putting everything back. So whereas a deck builder or a traditional deck builder, you kind of go through all the elements and you kind of go in cycles. So that's kind of different feeling you get from that. And when you talk about communal bag building, well, that immediately says, okay, so there's only one bag because, there's two different ways to think about that. I can either affect other people's bags or there's a communal bag that we're all drawing from. And I guess my current inclinations are putting things into other people's bags feels potentially a bit negative, a little bit, it's a little bit, confrontational. Thinking of a wildlife theme, if that's what we are going. And I like the kind of wildlife theme. I think it's it fits in that kind of realistic, world-based kind of ideas I was talking about last week that I think work really well at the moment. Things based in reality. Robin's talking about like it could be a bag drawn, right? That's true. That could be quite cool. Alex, on multiple bags placed on play area. That's true. You could have, you could be essentially building. You could have different bags in, like different continents, for example. I guess I kind of want to start simple usually when I would start thinking about an idea. And I think for me, the simplest thing is that there's just one bag that potentially maybe you're taking in turns to draw from. I sort of like the idea again, like I draw, I guess, sometimes you start with what is the simplest thing and like, can that work? And just saying like, what if it was like Augustus, but, you're altering the players. And that kind of tells me, okay, well then maybe there's something interesting, that you could, if it's a, slightly like a tableau builder, or you want certain things to be coming out of the bag, but maybe you want particular things more than other things, and maybe you're able to affect that. So, I can add more of a particular type of animal if that's going to benefit me somehow. So that's kind of interesting. Another thing that sort of comes to mind with this bag building wildlife sort of thing would be breeding. I guess happens in a lot of. We're not in a so I should probably put a few things down. I guess. So what we're going to have like Augustus, but you can affect the bag. Bag composition. Favor. The other thing I sort of think about is breeding. So specific or whatever breed the different animals. Oh, hey Brad, how are you going? Oh, thanks. No, no worries. Thanks for dropping by. Oh, well, that's very kind of saying. Glad you've been enjoying it. Hope it's useful. So we're just jamming on an idea from Alex at the moment. Oh gosh, have I? No, we're okay. So yes, so I was sort of thinking, well, okay, if you start with in the bag, you have different kind of events. Like if you draw out, a breeding event for sheep or something like that. Exactly. So when you pull certain things, that means that like, sheep are gonna. I mean, I guess I'm thinking maybe. In my head, I have New York Zoo in my head a little bit at the moment, which was, a recent Uwe Rosenberg design, and it has like specific parts of the board where you're getting to breed when you pass over them, or you choose. Yeah, I think people are. It's a bit like patchwork where a kind of a pawn is moving around a thing. So yeah, you could start with a very simple bag with say like, say there are 5 animals and there are 5. Breeding tiles for each of the animals, and there's a 5 like activate tile for the different animals. So I have a hyena activate and a hyena breed tile in the bag. But over the course of the game, maybe I can add more activate tiles into that bag for like if I want hyenas to be more active. And then that makes me think a little bit. Well, with something like that, is it actually like an area control game? Are you moving your different animals around? Something like that. Robin says you could have different types of location: woodland, prairie, Arctic. That's true. Actually, that's quite a cool. That's interesting. Like you could have 2 different types of chits. Animal types, animals and habitats. Whoops, can't really see that, but which is quite cool. And actually, if each of the animals were sort of double encoded a little bit, like you could imagine a fox in an Arctic environment. So a fox token being drawn out or an Arctic token being drawn out would like you could activate your fox in either way. Like you essentially, that could be quite cool. You could imagine that you have So there's a bit of a exactly. Yeah, exactly. Or double-sided chits. That's kind of interesting as well. Or you could have kind of like upgraded chits. Maybe there's ways that you can. That's how you're kind of affecting the bag. You're not only adding like more, hyenas to the bag, but you're adding like upgraded hyenas. So I think that's all kind of an interesting thing. And then I guess there's a bit of a question of like, what are we actually doing, or how, like, what are we kind of manipulating? I start to think a little bit about the tangible part of the game. So like, there's a part of me that wants animal meeples. I think that would be really cute and really cool. And I guess at the moment I am very interested in these. Why does it matter what you pull? Well, I would think that you are trying to get some. I mean, there's a couple of things. Could be if it was like the roll and write style game. Maybe you're adding. You're essentially going to be, every time you draw something, maybe you draw two tokens, and you choose which one to draw into your thing, and you can either essentially put something into an Arctic, environment, or you can put something into or you can put a particular animal in any environment, or something like that. And so, if I really want, lots of Arctic tiles, maybe that's going to let me. Yeah, that's a bit tricky, isn't it? Because there's a part of me that was thinking about like having animals on a map, and those maps would have different environments, and so when you pull, a particular animal, that lets you activate that animal and possibly move them around. When you activate a particular habitat, maybe that lets you activate all the things in that particular habitat, which could be interesting. But then I guess the thing is, the goal is what are you trying to do? Because that I think that, that question about why does it matter what you pull, you have to kind of answer like, what are we doing? What's the kind of goal of the game? And I guess I'm not quite sure there, because there's part for me, is it like a very puzzly game where we each have our own board and we're adding our own, animals and environments to them. Alex says, I like the idea that the habitats can spread or recede slightly, modeling climate change. Yeah, that could be quite interesting, actually. Actually, the interesting thing, of course, is maybe you have two bags. One is an animal bag and one is a environment bag, and you're sort of choosing how to affect each of them. And maybe, that the environment or habitat bag is somehow, it's dependent on somehow the group, as you said, modeling climate change. Maybe there's a sense that over the course of the game, certain habitats are going to sort of be in vogue or not. Oh, excuse me. Don't joke. Roman's saying set collection, error majority, board state manipulation. Yeah, it's a bit weird, I guess, and I'm trying to be kind of open with the process in my head as I sort of think about things. Like the moment I think about animals on a board, and I sort of start thinking immediately like, but haven't there been a few games that do that recently? Like I think of like, is it Gods versus Dinosaurs, or what's the new one from Pandasaurus, which has lots of different animals and they kind of fight, and it's sort of on a shared board and things like that. So there's something in the part of my mind that's like, I think there've been a few games that have done that kind of area majority kind of thing. I really like kind of puzzly games, so there's a part of me that would really love to see, a particular type of that would like to see, but yeah, or is it somewhere kind of in between? Because part of me, the other thing is like, and unfortunately, maybe does it come a little close to ECOS? Because we're sort of talking about a bag building wildlife theme, and obviously ECOS, the first continent, does exist. And I'm not saying, I guess, I'm not saying that these things should always, for a game jam, it probably doesn't matter that much, but I'm trying to kind of mirror my own way of, I would think about why a design would, a lot of it is kind of sifting through ideas, the initial part of game jam. So, because I was sort of thinking, it'd be cool if you had stacks of, like different habitats and you were adding to them the board, and then on top of them, you were putting different animals, so that you would only have, and of course, like Cascadia is also recently come out, which is also tiles of different habitats, and you're putting different animals on top of them. So it's it's a tricky sort of thing. Bass has an interesting suggestion. or an odd suggestion, if they say. If it doesn't matter what you pull, it could become like terraforming new habitats due to the animals, creating a whole new Pangea, or breed new types of animals to their new, like based on their new geographical location as a random bag building. Hey Rob, how are you going? Yes, dominant species, the bag, draw, and write. Yeah, I mean, if you go towards a roll and write sort of way, then I guess that feels, like you could essentially be both. I like the idea of having to write in habitats. This is sort of like a dual layered. For me, then the mechanical kind of the mechanical sort of twist would be, if you imagine like that there's a grid on your map or something like that, and you have to have the different habitats. They have to kind of, so there's a sense that you're kind of like setting all the habitats, but also animals are popping up on the habitats as you go, and that it's always a competition. Like you can only put an animal on a space on your map if you've already determined what habitat it is. Like if it's blank, you can't put an animal there. So there's this interesting timing aspect that you need the habitats to kind of go ahead of the animals, but there might be reasons why you want to get animals down early, like which comes back to the breeding thing. So if you kind of want a certain number of animals already on the map to take advantage of the breeding, because that essentially lets you put more animals down. That means that there's a bit of a balance between that decision making, that I might want to put habitat down for early because that helps me kind of plan out my habitats and have a good pattern in that way, and also kind of gives me more flexibility maybe on what animals I take. Whereas maybe I want to take animals quickly early on because then that lets me take advantage of breeding and things like that. And maybe it's like a generic breeding token, for example. But we still haven't, then we're kind of missing what the communal bag building is doing, I guess. Hey, T-Bone6, how you going? Maybe each animal chip has multiple uses of size, 4 different uses for a square, for example: attack, predator, eat, breed, symbiosis. Placing an animal chip next to another animal will trigger one of these uses depending on which side is adjacent. Oh, that's quite cool. So a little bit like Cacao, so if people don't know, Cacao is a great tile game from Phil Walker Harding, but it uses this idea that the tiles have different effects on the different sides, and when you put them two together, you get the effect of the action on that side, and they kind of have different strengths and things like that. Definitely worth checking out. It's a really great game. Do I generally try and find something a bit more unique? I mean, it depends. I think it really depends on like how do I say it? I think it depends a bit on the genre and like how big the game is. I think the smaller, like if it's a sort of a simpler, smaller game, I think the uniqueness factor is less important, because I feel like there are fewer games that are really nailing that short and sweet kind of engine buildery kind of simple bag building thing. I don't think there are that many games that do that. Whereas the moment it gets a bit more involved and a bit more like strategic or Euro-y, I feel like it's a lot more like there are a lot more games that are already doing that, I guess. So it's a bit more competitive. And then I'd be sort of thinking, oh, and that's why I think I make simpler games these days in a way, because there's just fewer games in that space. I think it's easier to find interesting deviations and things that you can sell to a publisher, for example. So yeah, so I think my mind is going towards. I mean, I like the roll and write thing, actually, to be honest. I mean, that's the funny thing about. I mean, maybe there's a point to be made, like why are roll and writes right now such a nice thing to design? I think it's because when you say roll and write, it answers a lot of questions for you quite quickly, often, about like everyone, when you say roll and write, it's very easy to imagine what that game looks like, even if you don't know most of the details. And that's actually kind of like it's a beautiful constraint, because it's easily understood. There's something about it that automatically like checks all these boxes. And I feel like early on in a game design, the difficult thing in some ways is that you need to kind of answer a lot of questions, like about like, what is the game? What are you going to do in the game? How do you take turns? Blah, 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 blah. You have all these questions about how the game works. And before it exists, you don't have answers to any of them. And to get to a first prototype, you pretty much have to answer all the questions. But having a constraint kind of automatically answers some of those questions. And if it's a broad enough constraint, like a genre, like roll and write, that answers so many questions in terms of like, well, like, yes, we're probably playing simultaneously. Yes, we probably have a personal board. Yes, we're probably writing on a pad. You know, yes, there's probably some sense of geography because the pad, you know, the pad has something like that. You know, it kind of it answers so many questions so quickly, which can be a great thing. And that actually, in some ways, lets you explore, well, you know, what is actually the cool thing. And actually, the really interesting point then is maybe that that these tiles, all of these tiles, are both, instead of having two different types of chits, you just, every chit is an animal, is like each is a unique combination of animal and habitat, and you're always choosing which one to use, either use a habitat or an animal. And then I think you could have interesting ways in which you have these kind of event chips in the bag, which are like breeding for animals, or say like ecological changes, disasters that might affect habitats, which might give you this sense of like, well, how do I want to sort of prepare for one or the other? And there's that little bit of excitement of like, oh, I might get the breeding tile now, and I was sort of set up. Because I think also in games, and that's why I was sort of talking about this trade-off between why would I want to take animals or habitats. I'm always thinking about trade-offs very quickly in games. I think it's a good way, even in very simple games, to add a lot of interesting strategic or tactical decision-making, is just have a simple trade-off for players. Like, do I do A or B? And like, why would I want to do A and why would I want to do B? And, you know, for us to be able to, for example, saying that you know, how they interact, you need to have the habitat before you can put an animal down. But that also, so that would push you towards just doing habitats. So why would I put any animals down? Maybe I just would do all my habitats. Well, then let's introduce this idea of breeding, which might make me want to put animals down also early because I get some benefit from that. So actually, I would put or an animal and habitat on each chit. Now, of course, as I write this, and when I think about a roll and write, I immediately go, well, that could just be a deck of cards, couldn't it? You know, there's no reason why it needs to be a bag builder. And actually, I have to admit that's a little bit of my own, what's the word, bias, I guess. I've probably tried to make quite a few bag builder games. It's never quite happened because they either happen like this and they kind of go in the roll and write direction, and then you go, well, can't I just do this with dice or with a deck of cards? Both of which, and this is the kind of like the, I guess the salesman bit in my head is sort of talking about, you know, which is sort of saying, well, if I'm trying to get this game published, you know, I might want to think about the kind of ergonomics or the sort of like the components, and you know, why do I need all these chits when I could just have, you know, a simple deck of cards? Sorry. Oh, yes, I missed Alex. Yeah, there is a really nice ergonomic framework. Yeah, exactly. As I said, yeah, I think framework is a really good word that I didn't really think about. In that it really helps sort of answer a lot of those questions quickly. Alex says, and you have to collect enough of a habitat to hold each type of animal. Maybe, but I kind of like I like having to have a continuous habitats. I think that's kind of interesting. I think having, for example, like what I imagine in my head is that you have one of each habitat already on your map somehow at the very start of the game, so it allows you immediately to put animals down, you know, from the very start. But the idea that habitats have to grow, they have to kind of match. So like if I start with a forest up here, I need to put the next forest next to it, or there's like some cost. You know, maybe I want the forest to be, you know, far away from each other or something like that. Which I think is, you know, could be an interesting sort of way. And then there's an interesting way of like, how do those habitats mix, and like how do they clash, and where do I have to make decisions over where I put different things. And of course, then you can have all your sort of, you know, I guess something like this makes me think of like a little bit like Kingdom Builder type scoring, where you have like variable goals or variable sort of patterns that you're trying to get matching, which works well with wildlife. But there's a bit of a race element. I think I kind of feel like it should, you know, probably end when a player can't place an animal, or when they're like put all their habitat out. So ways in which you can kind of get like free animals through the breeding is quite important, I think. And yeah, I guess I see it as, you draw the borders around the hexes, and that's the habitat, and then you put like a letter or a little scroll of what type of animal you're putting in the middle of it, and you're kind of building this little world, which is kind of nice, and that kind of dual geography I think is interesting. I haven't seen that in a roll and write. I haven't seen too many things like that. Roman says, are you drawing one tile or two per turn? One tile, you have to make a choice, animal habitat, but only place one tile. Two tiles, you start to make a choice, but you have one animal and one habitat to place your turn. That's a good question. I guess it'll depend a little bit on like how quickly you want the game to run, I guess. I would just start with drawing one shit, and you have a simple choice, habitat or animal. There's a possibility that doesn't diverge quickly enough, in which I'd sort of say, yeah, your sort of way of doing two. I like the idea of that the players could have different mixtures of like how many animals they have, like that could really start to diverge. I think that's a nice bit of variability, and it also means that you could have. I guess I kind of like the open-endedness of like you could have a very complete world with like very big habitats and like those scoring lots of points and just very few animals, or you have also kind of a smaller world that's kind of really full of animals, and then maybe you're getting a lot more points for animals. I like that variation in what's possible for the end state. Whereas if you're always having every player choosing an animal and habitat, it keeps that tempo very straightforward. And in a very simple game, that's kind of cool because it helps people understand. It's like, oh, I can't kind of go wrong. I'm always doing one habitat and one animal. Yeah, that's kind of. And T-Birds, there could be natural disaster tokens riddled throughout the bag or added later that hurts everyone, could spice it up. Yeah, I think there could be some interesting ways. And that's also an interesting way to add sort of replayability. You could imagine little expansions which just, okay, now you're adding in the volcano shit, and that's going to do something when it's drawn up. But Alex has asked a real good question, and it's good. As you gave me the theme, it's like, why would the players want to influence the makeup tiles in the bag if it's still a bag? Yes, that's true. So I guess the way that my mind has gone towards this roll and write has gone away from the original bag building side. I think if it was more about tiles in a bag, I think I would look to being a slightly. I mean, it's a bit hard to not be in that sort of thing about having like a functioning ecosystem. I guess that would be my kind of feeling then. It would be like where players really are playing on their own personal board, and you are still making your own personal world, and you're adding particular habitat tiles, which would be physical tiles, and then physical animals. And the reason why you would want to affect the tiles is because maybe you have a particularly good combo going with your hyenas. Because when you draw a hyena, you get to kind of activate them, and maybe that's going to score you points. So it wouldn't be about so much maybe scoring all at the end, but there are ways in which you can score points for a particular configuration at particular times. Yeah, but I have to admit the bag side has not. Yeah, it hasn't. My mind has gone more quickly into the roll and write, and I think maybe this is showing a little bit something that I guess is a little bit of my own personal preference, and maybe it doesn't match with what you folks are expecting from a game jam. But where I kind of always want to finish a game. I always want to, when I have an idea, there aren't that many ideas that are so sacrosanct to me in terms of mechanisms that I won't throw them out, especially very early on, if I have a better idea that's been inspired. Like, I don't really care where I started from, if somehow that inspired me to get to there. So, I mean, obviously this is through chat, so it's not just me doing it, but the kind of roll and write of habitats plus animals, actually, honestly, like I could think right now, I could think about how I would make that game. And I think the moment I find that, I sort of drill down into that. Yeah, flip and write, something like that. Yeah, exactly. Rather than and I kind of very will quickly then abandon maybe what the idea I had originally, which was this sort of bag building wildlife game. It's sort of interesting how we sort of went from bag building. That means you can have animals and breeding. And okay, maybe you can have habitats as well. And the moment the habitats and the sort of the roll and write thing came, that was quite interesting to me. And it means that I've sort of not thought so much about the communal thing. The interesting thing, actually, I will mention, is that I have actually made a communal deck building game with Seth Jaffe, which was to be published. I'm not sure if it is still going to be published. I hope it will. They'd already commissioned some art actually for it. And the way that we made that work is that it's a sort of an action selection game where, there's a central deck and they have of these gods, and essentially when you flip a god, you get to take a simple action with that god. Either you get to kind of improve the action of the god, or you take the action of the god. So it's sort of a, do you kind of invest for a better turn later on, or do you just sort of cash in and use whatever level you've got to of that god? And basically in that game, you do get to add new god cards to that, and the players do get to choose, but in a very slow way. So you add like one new card like every time through the deck, and basically you get to specialize in different gods that way. But I guess with the token thing, what I sort of think about, like, and I guess this is me just thinking a little bit about like a bag builder. In a way, I would be more for seeding the bag with interesting, unique tokens. I think I'd be more interested in, you start with some basic mixture of habitats and animals, and then the new tokens I add in aren't animals or habitats, but they're like special actions or things that might be particularly useful for me. Maybe I'm going for a particular strategy. I want to multiply lots of animals, so I want to put maybe like more breeding events in the bag, or I have lots of habitat and I want, like I'm going to be fine if there's some natural disaster, so I want more natural disasters. That's the sort of thing I go for. But it's funny because like the more I think about it, it's like, oh, is it just worth all the effort to worry about? Because you're right, it is. I think it's actually a sort of a collaborative bag builder is difficult, because if I want to do something that benefits me, and obviously I want to put more of it in the bag, like a sort of a personal bag builder idea. But in a communal sense, the difficulty is, if I make the bag better for myself, it's just not much fun for the other players, is it? Because, then they're drawing, I'm just drawing stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's great for me. But every time it's kind of great for me, by balance, probably it's not as great for the opponent. So how much fun is that? And especially for the kind of cost of like the mechanism you have to do in terms of like adding new, how do I add new things to the bag and how do I understand them and all this sort of stuff. So as Alex said, it's a good practice to ditch ideas if something works better. Yeah. So I think for me, I would be, I think this kind of like role, like flip and fill, dual layer plus animal. It's kind of Cascadia, almost the roll and write in a way, which is, maybe I would want to change the theme. I'm not sure, but it's not a bad. I think it's a good start. T-Bone6 says better tiles add more communal effects. Yeah, that's true. You could have a sense that like new tiles kind of. The other thing is you could sort of quote unquote own certain tiles. So when a tile comes out that's yours, you get kind of a little bonus action at that point. You could have a sense that like all the players get to add like bonus actions, but you're going to get them at different times. So you can imagine like I have little bonus tokens in my color, and then over the course of the game, we all get to add tokens to the bag at different points, and that gives us little bonus actions that only we get to take. So, but it's like a little bonus action that we get. Yeah, maybe. Robin says, if it's also not necessarily good for you, if you're collecting X, so add more of X, and player B keeps drawing your X, then you're both stuff. I guess I would see it as if you draw a tile, like everyone gets access to it. So but there is also a little bit like in this particular thing, it's just getting a bit of a sense also, like do you want to keep drawing the same thing? Like, is that a possible positive feedback loop that you're sort of going for or not? Oh, yes, exactly. As Alex says, depends if everyone gets to use the pools tile or just one player. I would be for everyone getting to use it at the same time, because I think I'm all for quicker simultaneous action games when you can do that. So I actually think that's the other kind of interesting thing. Add bonus tiles in player colors, bonus actions, but at known times. And then at this point, I would sort of say, well, actually, then you probably want a discard pile in this case, because you want to make sure that that you get your bonus actions like at a certain frequency essentially, and there's a certain more like a bit more of a, you can expect what's going to happen a little bit more easily, I would say. Yeah, so I guess that's kind of all right. So we started with wildlife and communal bag building. We were sort of talking about like kind of Augustus kind of bingo style, possibly breeding animals. Then we sort of got into chits and habitats. Hey, glad that you're enjoying the crew. I'm sure you can. We'll be doing one of your other addictions later on. I'm definitely going to play some Tiny Islands to close out. So, and then we sort of got on this idea of flip and fill, this dual layer habitat plus animal. And then I was sort of, I think in response to, I think my one breakthrough in terms of the like communal bag building is the idea of adding tiles of your own color, which give you a kind of little bonus. Actually, the other kind of cool thing potentially is it could be a little bit like buildings in Caelus, the idea that, like you're putting in better actions, but when they're drawn, if someone uses it, you get a point. So it's the idea that like you kind of own that shit, which could be an interesting thing as well, or do extra shits act like buildings in Caelus. Okay. You can see how bad my typing is. Brad asks, would you get these bonus tiles for filling in parts of your habitat, breeding, or some other ways? I'm not sure, actually. I like the idea of filling in a complete habitat. I think that's kind of interesting. I think, making certain patterns, for example, could be an interesting way to sort of triggering you getting to put in these bonus chits, and that would be an interesting, give you these little goals in the game. I quite like that, actually. I think that's kind of cool. Robin asks, double-sided cards. One side is the habitat, the other side animal. Each time you flip a card and use the combination of the back side of the next card with the front side of the card used. But yeah, so like kind of the what's it called? The welcome to kind of model. Yeah, which I think could work very well. So it makes sense. The more you contribute to the thriving of the life, you get points. Yeah, I think that might be an interesting way to kind of give this sense of a little bit of engine building too. Like there's a sort of an acceleration. Obviously, if these tokens that you put in have better actions, it means you're getting more and more done as the game goes on, but you're possibly giving a player points. So do I want to take that better action and give a player points, or do I want to take slightly weaker action, something like that? Yeah. I think that might kind of do me for the kind of game jam. But yeah, I mean that's I hope it was interesting for people just to kind of see my thinking, my thought process, I guess, around this. And I think it portrays a little bit of my own preference to try and get to something that's playable as early as possible. So yes, I guess if I had sort of been doing this, I would have probably at some point just gone, okay, I now know how to do the roll and write, I'm going to do that. And I wouldn't have thought about the bag building. But it's interesting, I think bringing up the bag building again, and thanks for that, Alex, actually made it, I think we got a little bit further in terms of like, what are some interesting mechanical things that you could do with that combined bag? I feel like they're kind of two games. I don't know how the communal bag works with the roll and write, because that's always the tricky thing with the roll and writes, is that just they're very good frameworks, but because of that framework, they're also kind of like usually component light kind of games. So having lots of chits in a bag is maybe a lot, but yeah. So I should say also anything that I work on the stream is kind of pretty open. I haven't really thought about certainly any ideas I chat about. Hopefully it's pretty obvious. If I'm working on the game, then that's a little bit different. But yeah, so feel free to take these and sort of go with it. But I'll also let you know if I'm also working on it, so that might also change whether you want to do it or not. And yeah, but the roll and write kind of thing is kind of cool with the habitats. I'd have to sort of sit on that and see whether it's something I would keep going with or not. I'm also a bit strange about roll and writes where you have to draw, because in this case you would have to kind of draw the animals in. Like I think some people really like that, but actually I personally would not like that at all because I can't draw. So I guess you can always have like symbols. You could put like letters. And maybe there are actually very simple ways that you could have like icons for particular animals and things like that. So maybe it's not so bad realistically, but yeah. That's well. Anyway, I hope that was useful. I hope it was worth your channel points, Alex, because you sort of thing. I should say Hunden 1381. I'm sorry I missed it earlier, but thanks very much for the follow. As I said before, I haven't set up any of these automatic things to tell me when people follow. So sorry. Yes, make sure the animals are different letters. Yeah, that's true. I think that would be an easy way around it, certainly. And yeah, so that's kind of how the game jam will work. So I think if folks ever want to redeem points, happy to do it. You know, I probably would space it out a bit, but yeah, hope it's a bit of fun, and it's useful for me too. You know, I'm not going to lie, it's always nice to be thinking about different things, especially right now when in my other kind of game design activities, I feel like I'm stuck. You know, you know, it's a bit of it's a hard, you know, first world problem that I have to face, but sometimes the hardest bit is where you know that you have to do something. No worries, Robin. See you. Have a nice meal. Is the feeling that like right now I have to work on a project and I can't not work on it. Like I can't. The nice thing about it when you're making up a new game is you can sort of start and stop as much as you want. You know, if you're not really feeling it, you can just not do it. But yeah. Alex says, I think it's part of the appeal of polyomino roll and writes. You can draw as much or as little as you like. Yes, that's true. Yeah, because you can kind of embellish it as much as you want, and the kind of, you know, the cartographers or, you know, all the patchworky kind of ones. Yeah, that's true. That's true. No, I think having that thought about how to do it simply or allow players to be really interesting. But I think I really do like the yeah, I like and the only other thing that's sort of come to me a little bit is also you could have the habitats pre-printed and you're merely circling them when you've kind of like activated them or when they're ready, which might also add an interesting sort of puzzly aspect. You know, a bit like these, you know, like how are you gonna, maybe you always have to, you know, landscapes have to kind of grow continuously, but you always have to think about like, well, if I don't do the, you know, the Arctic terrain now, I might not get it for a while, so maybe that's going to block me in some way. Could also be interesting, and like add a bit of like a puzzle element, like give players a little bit of a reason to do certain things. Might also be interesting. Yeah. So I think that was sort of, and I mean, I guess the only thing was, well, I was going to maybe chat a little bit about where do you start with new design, but hopefully the game jam has sort of given a bit of an idea of some of the thought process I would go through. And I think some of those questions about asking like why, you know, if you've got especially if it's a mechanical idea, asking like why, like what do I get from using this mechanism? What are some interesting things I can do with this mechanism? What are some different things I can do with this mechanism? And then once you work out what you can do with them, or how does that feed into the incentives and what you want players to do, is quite interesting. Alex says maybe a Sprawlers style goal card system to have different parameters for points. Yeah, I mean, or, you know, similar to Kingdom Builder where you draw like 3 random goal cards and you got to score each of them, and then you're trying to work out how do you get the patterns to work together. Yeah, that could be quite nice. I mean, of course, you know, it would be amazing if somehow you could use the Sprawler system where you don't use the 3 goal cards you don't use in the deck and something like that. That might be a bit too much. I'm not sure, but yeah. Yeah, and I think the other thing I'd say is just don't get too stuck where your idea started. I think like game jams are a great thing, like in terms of use prompts as they are. They're prompts, they're not finished designs, and if they lead you in a particular direction that's quite different to where you started, then fantastic. They helped you get to that point, and they've done their job exactly. Don't feel, you know, trapped in that initial idea, or even if you've made a prototype or, you know, gone further along, you can always, you know, that's the beauty of especially being very early on with a game. You know, there's nothing is sacrosanct. You can change anything, you can make big changes. And it's good to be kind of flexible, because then I think you're more likely to find maybe the best configuration of things that for that particular theme or that particular mechanism that work well, or potentially find something new if you keep trying things. Of course, that's balanced with if you always just keep trying things, you always keep changing things, then it's hard to settle in and really iterate on something. I think that's a bit of feel, probably comes with experience, that you get a bit of a sense of like, you know, am I making progress? Is this useful to keep changing things? Do I feel like I'm learning things as I change it around? I think, I guess I would say really, like if you're changing a design, probably something to ask yourself before you do that is, have I learned why I'm changing it? Like maybe you've learned that what you have doesn't work. Maybe you don't know why you're changing it to something else. but you know what you have right now doesn't work because of this reason. You could say, okay, I've learned that, and now I'm happy to change it. I think if you can't answer why you're changing something, then that's probably maybe speaking to maybe maybe you shouldn't change it for a little while. Maybe you should just try and play the same thing, because you know, if you're kind of changing it without a vision or without a reason to, then you can fall in the trap of just changing things all the time and not really like honing in on a better design, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah, so yeah, that was game jamming, and that was starting a new design. I think well, firstly, if anyone's got any questions or about that, please do let me know. I am open for questions. And I think I'm going to check, actually, because I really enjoyed. We played some Tiny Islands on Friday, and actually on Sunday, Ross of Board Game Please on his Discord runs kind of different challenges for the Tiny Islands. And on Sunday, it was you had to use all boats. And actually, I haven't done this. So Monday is Golf Monday, which you have to try and score the lowest score, I think. But I think negatives count as positive points, so you can't like intentionally blank yourself. Rob says, I want to properly start a new game design, but can't find the time. Yeah, I know the feeling. It's hard, and I guess, yeah, I guess you want to feel like that you have the time to devote to something when you start. So it can be tricky, like like you kind of want to wait until you do have the space, but all the time headspace to do it. Yeah, it's tricky, I guess. Again, I'm in a lucky position where I can sort of work on things if I want. Jay says, say you wanted to work on the same idea next week, how would you take notes, write rules to be able to do so? Well, I could show that, actually, I guess. Let's do that. Let's pretend that I am going to, well, not pretend. I mean, I may work on it. I don't know. I will fire up my thing. So everyone's going to get a bit of a, hold on, I'm going to have to stop that. Share that. Here. So this is my notes app, and this is the game ideas sort of tab, and you can see I basically have a new note for every idea I have. Some of them are literally like I had a very quick idea. This is I was sort of thinking about. I'm not sure if anyone does logic puzzles. So Hashi is a particular type of like logic puzzle that's like kind of about making a network, and I was sort of thinking about, I'd love to do something like a Metro-inspired logic puzzle. So I just wrote that down as that idea. But so what are we doing? We're doing wildlife. I would probably do it as a roll and write, I think, because that's where my idea is going. So I would say map with habitats pre-printed. Pre-printed. That's with an animal habitat. Draw one card and choose either habitat. Do circle. All circled habitats, not adjacent. For placement. Variable. Kingdom builder. Creating cards in deck to draw. So yeah, this is probably roughly what I would write. I probably put like the best instance of the idea. I guess I haven't captured like all the possibilities, but this is the closest in terms of like I have a clear vision of like what I would make. Okay, I need to make a map with habitats. I need to make a set of cards, and maybe I want the breeding cards in there. and I need some variable puzzle scoring, you know, and that's a bit of a shorthand for me, I guess, because I know how it works in Kingdom Builder. You know, if I had a bit more of a different idea, I'd be a bit more verbose, I guess. Yeah, so that's about what I would write, to be honest. And I think for me, it's interesting, as I said before a little bit, I might actually ever read this again, because if the idea is kind of good enough or it's caught me enough, it will stick in my head and I'll keep thinking about it and turning it over. And then I'll go straight to making a prototype. You know, I don't always need to refresh myself of an idea. Whereas if I kind of completely forget about it and don't work on it, then this is now just at least remembering. At least I have an archive of ideas I can sort of go on and look at. So yeah. Rob says starting game design is most of what I do. Yeah, I mean, it's something. It's tricky. It's something I definitely fell into early on in my game design career. I would always start a new game every week, and I wouldn't finish anything. And now I'm trying to get better at actually not starting things, and that's why it's interesting even with this idea, because I'm like, oh, I have actually a pretty good idea of where this would go. I'm just going to write it down, and I always wait like 1 or 2 days to see, like, does it actually still interest me? Do I still want to think about it? Yeah. Robert asks, out of interest, am I the only person working on one thing? Other folks seem to have lots of ideas on the go. Yeah, well, for me personally, I have a lot of games on the go. That's like, I think once you're trying to do it professionally, you have to have a lot of games on the go if you're only relying on one project. Unless you're someone like Uwe Rosenberg, where maybe you can release a game each year. But even so, games are going to go at different... I mean, games even just naturally go at different stages. And once you get to the stage where you're just limited by playtesting because you're kind of like, the game is pretty solid, I always find like you have sort of other time then. You have other designing time. I don't need to think actively about that game because I just need to play it a lot. So I want to use that time for something else, I guess. I'm not sure what other folks in the chat are like. Rob says, I have about 6 games I've worked on in the last couple of months, for example. Brad asks, nowadays, is your first minimal viable product physical or digital? Very good point. It's digital now. Actually, funnily enough, my printer, I mean, this is a weird thing, but my printer's actually out of a particular color ink, and I've been not very good at getting refilled, which is reinforced even further that everything is just digital. But yes, it's it's digital now. It's just quicker, actually. And considering that most of the chances I have to playtest are virtual, I don't really have any chance to do, in-person playtesting. I could make a version. It's actually funny. I do have one design that I recently made, that I made digitally, and I've playtested it digitally with some folk, done 2 tests. And now that it's kind of working okay, I'm actually thinking of finally making a physical prototype. I mean, the other thing about digital prototypes, they're just easier to change and easier to update. And now that I feel like this game has sort of settled down a bit, I might make a physical thing so I can play with my partner, just to get a few more tests in. But yeah, a lot of it is virtual. There were games. Actually, there was a game I designed last year that's like a card-based game. All the playtesting was mostly done digitally. I made some physical versions only so I could just more quickly do solo testing. But realistically, I probably could have done solo testing virtually as well if I wanted to. Alex says, looking forward to seeing this in your prototype retrospective 2025. It's interesting, actually. I don't mind this idea. I must admit, it has gone away from that that collaborative bag building game. But I do like the idea of the role, like the flip and fill thing. So maybe it won't just be the prototype retrospective. Maybe it will be actually designed. Alex says, I think it's a balance. If I find I work on one thing too long, I get a bit burned out, less creative. That's true. And I guess that's probably a reason why a lot of people work on different projects. It kind of reinvigorates you to kind of think about something else. And you just naturally get stuck. It's just normal that you'll get stuck on an idea. And I find, at least, it doesn't help me very much to try and like bash my head against a wall. So I will just work on something else. And the only other thing is I can't stop having ideas. So I'm always thinking of new things and new things I want to work on. So that's it, I guess. So I am going to... We're going to do some Tiny Islands probably. But we could still chat and do normal kind of I still answer questions as I'm playing. It'll be my first Golf Monday Tiny Islands, which is quite exciting. I was thinking a little bit about how to best play Golf Mondays, so we'll see if I have it right in my head. Rob says, I see it as a pipeline. The games I'm working on are at various different positions of the pipe. Every now and then something arrives at the other end of the pitchable state. Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable thing. I mean, one of my kind of not dreams, but I would love to somehow make a physical representation of like where all like a Trello board, but physical, because I kind of like physical note-taking things a little bit more. I'd love to have. I saw something which was it was like a notice board, but it had it was like a grid on a notice board which had little what's the word, Velcro dots at like each of the intersections. So you would have like a project per row, and then you'd have like a little thing that would go across to sort of show where it's at. It's a bit like, you know, if anyone follows Stonemaier Games or some other publishers have these kind of like where they have all their projects and where they are in the pipeline. I'd love to have something like that. I think just to kind of like, even just as a sort of a visual reminder of things, I guess. No worries. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for dropping by. And what's VPT? Yeah, I'm intrigued. But yeah, have a nice evening. Thanks for dropping by. Yeah, so I would love to have this kind of physical embodiment of the pipeline. I think just to also help, it's like a little bit of a slight mental health thing in that, you know, when you're working on games, often it can just feel like everything is just so far away often. Like a virtual playtesting group. Okay, yeah, good luck. Hope it goes well. You know, or like you work on a game and you might pitch it and you might even, you know, you sell it to a publisher. That's fantastic. But then it still might be like a year or 2 years before it is sort of released. And I think having that up there and sort of knowing that you sold it, I think that just is like a little bit of a, you know, pep yourself up a little bit when you feel that things are going badly. And the only other thing is it might also help me remember, like, you know, what I should be working on, or what could use a bit of working on. Like, if I haven't looked at a prototype, I was sort of also thinking like to have some sort of reminder set. If I have a particular prototype that I haven't looked at, like in a month, that my computer would remind me, you haven't looked at this prototype for a month. Do you want to do something on it? Just to kind of like, it's that kind of like, when I look at these self-help kind of videos, it's that kind of stage of like reflecting. You know, so you have to like capture all the information, but then you also need to reflect on it to work out what you want to do, essentially. Okay, so I'm just checking. It's golf. Yeah, so it is Golf Monday, I'm pretty sure. So anyone wants to join along in Tiny Islands, which I think is probably going to become a pretty regular feature of the stream, it seems, at the end. So today's the challenge, if you want to be on, if you're in Ross's Discord server, I think anyone's welcome to join, is Golf Monday. Basically, you're trying to get the lowest score possible. There is a way to get negative points in Tiny Islands by essentially putting elements in the sea on land or vice versa. But I believe the rule is that if you get negative points, they actually count positive. So you don't want to get negative points specifically. You just want to get the fewest positive points. So yeah, I could talk a little bit about my thinking about this was thinking about what elements it's probably very easy to make sure they score 0. And I think obviously I'd be very interested to see how easy it is to actually score 0, because there are quite a few ways. So churches are easy to make you score 0. You just put both churches on the same island. You could put waves right next to each other or in the same row of columns, you can get 0. You could put beach in the middle of the sea and get 0. And most of the other things you just want to space out. So I think the things I want to definitely avoid are houses, because houses are very easy to pick up points because they get points for anything they're next to. And I assume that there are going to be some cases where I'm going to have to put things next to each other. So I'm going to try avoid houses, and I'm going to try avoid boats, because boats essentially always give you points. So let's see how we go with the daily shuffle. But also feel free to keep asking me questions as we're going. Very interested. Okay, so I'm suspecting that it's quite easy. Well, either one is gonna. Okay, so I'll put a shore out in the sea. Put some trees over here. Don't want trees to be next to anything. Okay, I feel like it's going to be easier to make sure that we put sea things like shore very far away from each other. I like these trees can be on the same island, but hopefully not next to each other. Okay. So I can try and make these houses. I feel like it's going to be hard to make houses be worth 0. Waves are kind of always 2 unless I can put them next to each other, but it might be a bit tricky. But I guess not. As long as you get another wave that you can put. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to put a house sort of in the middle. I'll put it there. Okay. Let's see. Waves again. Or I can try and put another house sort of remotely. Houses next to houses is fine because houses don't score other houses, so that's good. We definitely don't want a church. Or we could go having the same church on the island. But I think I can just stick some trees up here. We could put more houses next to each other. That's perfectly fine. I won't score anything. Okay, so this seems like a pretty. I'll make this a big enough sort of land mass or something like that. Okay, so that's fine. So that's going to score 0. The shore. Okay. Okay, we can just put the forest just slightly non-adjacent. That's good. That's going to be a bit of a tricky forest. Okay, I don't mind taking 1 point. Just houses. I'm not sure if anyone else is playing along or if I'm just sort of doing myself. That's not a problem. Let's put some. Yeah, thanks, Alex, and thanks for dropping by. Thanks for the idea for the game. I hope it was enjoyable, and yeah, look forward to doing more in the future. Let's shut this here. Let's put some more stuff in the sea. Seems a bit dangerous. Put some more shore in the sea. Yep. Some disconnected forest. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Okay. It's a bit tricky because we're going to have to put. Oh wow, these are identical. So I have to put a church here, which is a bit annoying. What I'm probably going to do is just have to accept a single point. I might do a little island here or something like that. Okay, I can keep alternating the forests. Yep, I will keep alternating the forests. Yep. Hey, Nicola, how are you going? Welcome. Yeah, no worries. Thanks for dropping by, Brad. Hope it was hopefully it was useful. And yeah, let me know on Twitter. Anybody if you want to see a particular topic on a future stream or particular question or anything like that, do always let me know. Happy to chat about most things. So I really want. Well, I guess 1 point isn't that bad, realistically. I wonder if I could make a small island. So it might give me enough flexibility. Whoops. Okay. So that's 1 point. I'm not sure if that's going to hurt me a bit. It may. But let's see. Let's see. Okay, might have to take 2 points for the waves. Well, I could take 1 point for the houses. It's not that bad. Yes, I assume it's going to all get a little bit more difficult. That's not great. I could take... Hmm. Finding this one a bit tricky because I'm kind of thinking, do I throw a mountain down here and hope that I'm going to put a little island down here? Yeah, I guess so. Let's try that. I don't want that, so let's do some shore, which I can do here. I don't score anything. Oh, good thing I did a house, I guess. I can put a house here. I can put another shoreline here, so that will score nothing. Oh, we have to do a wave. Okay, can't do anything about that. Okay, I'll throw a wave here because there's a chance I could get another wave. I guess probably a good thing is to try and make like waves, put an early wave down so you're more likely to, yeah, I'm sure. Oh, good, I can put another house here. That won't score anything. Oh, I can put another church on this island, so that will even cancel out the scoring here. So that's good. Oh, fantastic. Okay. So I think I've got a pretty good low score. Let's see how badly I did. I'm trying to get the lowest score, so I had to do that wave, unfortunately. Hopefully all these shores are mostly zero. I've got one that's one. I quite like this version of it, actually, in a way. It's a fun extra challenge. Clustered all my houses together. 1 point for that house. I'm going to get 1 point for that house. So that's 2. The churches knocked each other out, which is great. 0 for them. I think I've managed a pretty amazing set of forests that have... hey, Bez, how are you going? Yes. I wasn't discussing the nature of game jams. We're actually doing a game jam itself. So one of the things you can do on the stream is you can claim some points to like some channel points to ask me to do a game jam live on stream. So we talked about a sort of a wildlife communal bag builder / roll and write, and I was chatting a little bit about how to start on new designs and my thought process around that. So you can check out the stream at any point later on, and that might be useful for you. But yeah, but now we're doing some Golf Monday of Tiny Islands. That's where you try and get the lowest score possible, and I think I've done reasonably well. And no actual penalties, which is good. So yeah, so I got 5 points. I'm not sure if anyone else has done the challenge. I'm going to quickly look and see if there's the leaderboard. I'm just trying to think what people did. I'm seeing some 5s, 9s. Someone got 1. Wow, 4 points. Okay, so I was all right. I didn't do the best, but didn't too bad. Oh, I see, actually. So it seems someone who did a lot of waves got 1 point, because maybe it's very easy to get waves to knock each other out, I guess. But yeah. Whoops. Yeah. So that's that's Tiny Islands. Yeah. So I think that might roughly do me for today. I don't know if anyone has some last minute questions. Shoot. Otherwise, I'll be probably finishing up in the next 5 minutes or so. What are people up to this week? Bez asks, cool, up on YouTube after. Yes, I will. Things go up on YouTube. I think I have to wait like a day, because you're not supposed to, at least the way I read it, if you're an affiliate, you're not supposed to simul stream in different platforms, which mean they have to be at least 24 hours later. So I always put them up a day later on YouTube, as long as I remember, but I think I'm pretty good with that. For the record, I'd totally love you to put the audio of the pre-game playing bits onto a podcast. Yeah, other people have said about podcasts. I will look into that. It goes slightly against my thing of trying not to I'm just always about like trying not to get my just trying to think about like how much time I want to spend doing things. But I'm not sure. Yeah, well, if anyone else is interested in podcasts, do let me know. If I get enough interest, then I will look at doing that. Hey, Robin, how are you going? Yes, you missed quite a good golf score. I got 5 on Tiny Islands. It's Golf Monday, so we're trying to get the lowest score and talking about podcasts or possibly turning this into a podcast or at least the kind of non-game playing parts. So yeah, but otherwise probably going to be ending up finishing up the stream in a few minutes. So if you got any burning questions, Robin, let me know. Robert says tonight were record vocals for what will be hopefully this year's. Sorry, I don't think I quite understand what you typed, Robert. As rules about live vocals, Alexis year seems the best chance for everyone to be involved. Oh, I see. They're doing a mass recorded choir of people submitting vocals. Oh, interesting. Oh, I shall check that out. Yeah, and I didn't know that they were that. So they're changing the Eurovision rules a little bit in terms of live recording. I guess they might have to if the contest can't be held in the same place. Biz asks, what is my favorite cheese? That is a very good question. Oh, there's a deadline today. Okay, I will check that. My favorite cheese. That's a good question, actually. Very good question. I like a lot of cheeses. I mean, I'd probably say something like Stilton. I do like a good blue cheese. But I do like a really good cheddar as well. I think I like strong flavored cheese or goat's cheese, actually. Strong camembert. You know, I'm pretty open. Nicholas says, as per the outlook for this week, trying to up my output at least a bit. Had what I think is a breakthrough in a couple of games. Oh, fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that, Nicola. Yeah, it's a really nice time. Yeah, that feeling where you have that little twist of an idea and you can kind of move forward is always a nice. Yeah, I mean, it's good to celebrate those times because there's plenty of frustrating times as a game designer that you kind of forget the times when you have a bit of success or a bit of a breakthrough. So yeah, definitely enjoy it and I hope it goes well. Bez says I enjoy Saint Augur. Oh yes, I probably have had Saint Augur, but I've never had it so much. We used to have in my halcyon days as a Trinity College student at Cambridge. One of my favorite things was after the formal meals where you could have a cheese plate or something like that. I think that's when I really probably ate a lot more cheese and things like that. Bez says, yes, all about the strong flavors. We can share cheeses one day, maybe. Yeah, exactly. No, I think I also really like oven baked camemberts, which are a bit different because they don't have to be very strong flavors. But I love like roasted cheese in an oven with roasted garlic and something like that. I really like garlic as well. So having all of that together is hot cheese and garlic and everything like that is also a very I like quite a bit. Yeah. Well, thank you all for being here. Thanks for being a great audience as always. And I hope the stream was useful or interesting at least. Robin said, I normally start writing rules early in the game purely because I'm so forgetful. I currently have a game which had an excellent couple of playtests a year ago, revisiting the design, and I'm baffled how to play it. Well, you're doing better than I, Robin, because yeah, I am. I mean, I don't think I'm pretty sure it's a pretty common problem that people don't like writing rules, and I definitely don't. And as people have seen when I go back through over old prototype files, like they very rarely have rules and I have no idea how they work. So, but I tend to think that like if it was interesting, I think Eric Lang said something about, maybe it was about a year ago, where he said he'd sort of trashed all his old designs. Like if things hadn't been finished, he just cleared them out and deleted them off his computer and got rid of the old prototypes. It was like kind of a spring cleaning. And I guess I try to keep that in mind. I don't want my head cluttered too much with old things. Like I think if there's an old design that for some reason I have a breakthrough I really want to work on, I'll kind of let that happen organically and I'll let my mind drive that rather than trying to keep everything in my head balanced. So that's why I guess I'm not so worried about if I forget something. Oh, well, there was probably a reason I did, and I've got plenty of games to do. No, don't worry, Bez. No, I'm happy to. I'm sort of I happy to chat. I'm it's more. I think I'm trying to read the room. If chat sort of had enough for me, then I'll move on. But but yeah, but that's good, Robert. I mean, it's great to write rules, and if you do like going back on old designs, then it's fantastic to have that as a resource. It's very useful. So no, it's definitely a good idea. I'm very bad at it, I must say. Oh, congrats, Bez, on sending out outstanding invoices. I'm gonna have to play my debt collector role soon, because there's definitely a few invoices which are outstanding that I'm gonna have to start. Like I feel like enough of the time has gone into the year where I can start asking people. But a lot of publishers tend to send, when they have yearly invoices. So I expect probably there'll be sales reports and things that will come through at the end of this month. It tends to be like they have until the end of January. So everyone does it end of January, early February. And Bez asked, did I have any big wins? Not since the last stream, although that's only been a few days. We had a very promising meeting with Space Cowboys on Thursday about some new projects. Nothing set in stone, but definitely looking very promising. And there's multiple possibilities, which is there's nothing really known yet, and there's nothing really decided, so I can't really say more than that. But I guess that's there's like a kind of a pending big win if that will happen. So I've got my fingers crossed about that. But well, thanks all. Well, let's have a look at Bez. You're always excellent at suggesting who to raid. Does anyone have any recommendations of who we should raid? I can't. I'm happy to take new suggestions as well, because I'm still not following necessarily that many people on Twitch, or I try to follow as many people as I can, but I'm always interested in finding new people to follow. Everyone, Bez, I'm not sure if you were here on Friday. We comically followed. We went to, what is it? A German, some sort of famous German game things. Oh yes, I am willing to carry on, certainly. Since I'm willing to carry on, I'm planning to run a game jam, very much inspired by Adam Markle. Do you have any quick tips for running a good game jam? Well, I'm guessing your question is also sort of tempered by how to run a good game jam via stream. I'm guessing. Tell me if I'm wrong, because I think they're sort of different, and I think actually Michael is the person to talk about it, because he was the one who kind of got it to work. I guess having something that's so easily prototyped. Silvers is doing video games. Okay, we're gonna have a look at Silvers. Yeah, I think choosing roll and writes, as we sort of talked about a bit earlier on the stream, roll and writes are great because they're such a great framework that really kickstart design. And I would suggest choosing a theme or a constraint that can give, that can help designers and yourself start as kind of like far along the track as possible, because I think it sort of cuts out, it sort of breaks down the barriers for people to participate. So like roll and writes are kind of perfect because they're kind of they're in right now, and they're easy to prototype, easy to play on stream. So I think it would be trying really to do something like that, I guess. I think some things like a solo, like specifically solo game, like a simple deck of cards, like, having saying, I want to make a solo, like RPG adventuring style game with a deck of cards or something like that, or a solo card, a solo game which is just a deck of cards and some dice, or something like that, which immediately gives people like an easy kind of component way to think about things that helps, I think, more people to work on things, I expect. Although there are people in the chat who also actually participated. I didn't actually make a prototype. So I think finding there are two things. One is, how do you make sure participants can get started as easily, so you get more people participating, which is great. And what is the most amenable to playing on stream? And I think like roll and writes are great. I think single deck kind of games are probably good. It's easy to get it. I would imagine they're fairly easy to prototype. Like you could imagine even people, if you wanted to play test other people's designs on stream, if you said it's like a maximum, like especially like as a micro game stream might also be interesting. Like it has to be 18 cards or less. So you could imagine that people could email you the 18 cards and you could easily make them up to show them like with a camera physically on stream. That also makes it easy. So I think like component constraints are probably good, and thinking about what's easy to play on stream. Those are the sort of things that come to mind. So I'll give the 30 seconds, Vez, if you want to ask anything else, because I think there's a bit of a delay between what I see on the chat and things here. But Otherwise, then I'll look up this Silvers person. Silvers. Is the username actually Silvers, or is it something else? Oh, Slivers. Sorry, Slivers. I can't read that properly. Oh yeah, it's playing some Stardew Valley. I see. Is that right? I guess so. Yeah. It's all good. Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you all again. Have a wonderful evening, a wonderful weekend. Yes, I will await your rating suggestions, Bez. And just a reminder that I am streaming on Wednesday mornings now, 9 o'clock UK time, 10 o'clock European time. So I'll be back on Wednesday morning for the second board game cuppa. I like music. Let's do some like mic or video. Good question. Let's do some music. I feel like a bit of music, so I'll put Mike Bass music here. Great. Okay. Yeah. Have a great week and see you all on Wednesday. And thanks very much for dropping by. Okay. Hopefully this is all working. Great. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a nice week. Bye.